Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Inclusion Starts Now. I am so excited you're here because today we are going to talk all about the holiday season. It is right around the corner, and it is so important that we all have really good boundaries and use this holiday to raise inclusive kids. So we are going to go over some things like sitting on Santa's lap, elf on the shelf, how I do presents and stockings here, and how I raise inclusive kids during the holiday season. This episode is brought to you by Miguel the Chameleon. If you are looking for the new best holiday book to talk about all the different kinds of holidays that are celebrated during winter, go buy Miguel the Chameleon. He is on my website and he wants to come home to you. So, thank you, Miguel the Chameleon, for sponsoring this episode, and let's just get to it. And it's not going to get serious until I put my Christmas headband on. Check and check. And it's Christmas because it is red, white, and sparkly, and nobody can see it unless you're watching this on YouTube. Oh my God. I've coughed twice. I am getting over a cold, and at the tail end of this cough, I seem to just sporadically cough whenever I make myself laugh unexpectedly. We are going to first talk about big things that happen during the holiday season that I want us to rethink how we're going to navigate through these activities. And the first one is Santa. So I want to be completely honest with my children as much as I can at all times, and what is age appropriate. And so at this point, I am not lying about Santa. I don't tell them that Santa comes down the chimney. I don't tell them that you need to be a good boy or girl to get presents from Santa. We do talk about how Santa's a character for the holidays and for Christmas, and a lot of people like to go see a person dressed as Santa at stores or malls or whatever, and it's still really fun. What I love about Santa is that I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people talk about Santa like he's a real person, which is why I think this is such an interesting lie that people love to tell their kids, because at some point, you tell them that like Santa's not real, and I really do feel like that trusting relationship gets hurt. But then it's a little confusing because everybody talks about Santa like he's a real person. I mean, I've heard grown adults make jokes about Santa. Like I was at Costco and someone was like, hey, you want some chocolate? This is what Santa's bringing this year. And they were like, oh, if Santa's bringing this, then I'm going to have to make sure to, I don't know, be good or whatever they said. But it was a conversation. Neither of them had kids. Kids weren't even near them, yet they were actively talking about Santa like he's a real thing. And so, and I've explained that to my kids too, where we talk about the story of Santa. People love to talk about Santa because he is a huge character for the holidays. But is he the one that's coming down and giving you presents? No. Do you need to be a good kid for presents? No. You need to be a good, we'll talk about morals in a little bit. And continuing the Santa conversation, I would never put my kids on Santa's lap / a stranger's lap for a picture. We have no pictures of our kids crying near Santa because we would never put our kids through that. If we want them to know that what they say matters, and if we are going to go get a picture with Santa and they start crying because they don't want to be on his lap, then yeah, I want them to know that I fully support them, and you're not going to get in trouble for saying no, you don't want to sit on Santa's lap, or even take a picture. And I see stories about every year where people will say like, well, my kids were just dying to go see Santa. They were begging me, and we waited in this line for 45 minutes, and we got up to the front, and then they cried and didn't want to be on Santa's lap. And I was like, no, we waited in line. We're doing this. Like, we have to follow through kind of thing. And I'm going to say, no, you don't have to follow through because, and this might be a trigger warning for some people with assault, but think about, you're on a date with someone. You talk to them all night. It's a great date. Maybe you go out to dinner. Maybe they bought dinner. Maybe they walk you home and maybe you start kissing and you're like, oh, this is nice. Maybe they could come inside. And then maybe things start taking a turn or whatever. You just don't want to do it anymore. It doesn't matter for any reason. If you want to say no, the other person should respect that. And so if we are like giving, I mean, like as a kid, that is like their foundation. Like we are building a foundation of how to set boundaries, how to trust people, how to communicate. And if we're not actively supporting them through that process, then it's just going to keep building up these layers until they become adults. And then they're still not going to know how to set boundaries and how to be able to communicate if they don't want to do something. So that's Santa. And I'll talk about what we do with presents because I do feel like that was something that I kind of just had a different experience with. And I'm just kind of changing it for my kids, seeing how it goes. Next, I want to talk about Elf on the Shelf. Now, I love the idea of like moving the elf around and he does like funny pranks or whatever. I don't ever want to dedicate so much time to that. I am impressed when people can do it. That's just not for me. And whatever, I know people, it's magic, it's fun for the kids, and that's cool. If you have the time and energy to do that, go for it. Here is my problem with Elf on the Shelf. The elf should not be watching the kids. That is not something that we should be telling the kids because that's not a reason to be good. You should not be trying to not hit your sibling because you think Elf or Santa is watching you. You should not hit your sibling because we have other ways to communicate and we can problem solve together and we can find a solution or compromise or whatever. That is what we need to focus on. I feel like saying that the elf is watching you is really just a cop-out because it does take time. My kids do fight and they hit and they do all that, and I will have to stop what I'm doing, go over to them, help them separate and be like, hey, sounds like there's a problem happening. How are we gonna, solve this? And I walk them through how to communicate, how to compromise. Maybe we need a break for a little bit. But all of these are just like these scare tactics are just like not how I parent my kids. And when I talk about these things with people like neighbors or whatever, people in our community, I have had people just say like, you're taking the fun out of Christmas. Like, why don't you just let them believe? And I'm like, you can still believe and have fun in Christmas, but also have all the facts. There's actually a great Disney movie, I think it's called Klaus, and I think it's on Disney, and it is a great movie about this guy named Santa and like what his tradition started and how it's like this beautiful tradition that we all love to celebrate, and then we still talk about him as he's the one who started this tradition. Is it a true story? I have no idea. But again, it's fun to believe and we all love that. So it's, I just feel like that is, presents can still be fun. We can still be good kids and not have this threat of like Santa or an elf is watching you because they're making sure that you're not being a bad kid. Because really we should never be calling kids bad kids. That could be so detrimental to their own spirit and their way of how they view themselves. Even when they're yelling, pinching, scratching, upset, whatever feeling they're feeling, we all feel those things. And so finding healthy ways to feel those feelings in a safe way is so much more important to work on. Instead of just saying like, you're a bad kid, you're gonna get coal. So that is all I have to say about Santa and Elf on the Shelf. I'm sure I'll circle back to it at some point. But I do also want to talk about presents and stockings and how we do it at our house. Presents and stockings. Now, personally, I've been trying to just consume less, and kids just grow out of things so fast. So this was their first Christmas year where I have found all of their toys through Facebook Marketplace, Goodwill, Buy Nothing, which is like a Facebook group where people just get rid of things in their city and it's for free. And that has been such a fun experience because I got them great things. They got like gymnastics. We got a balance beam that someone actually made for their child, but now their child's older and doesn't use it anymore. And I got it for like $20 and it's a nice like on the floor balance beam. And we just got a fake kitchen, which I don't know if I'm even gonna be okay with that, but it was $30 and it was like an $80 kitchen that they sold for $30. And it just makes me feel better that I'm reusing things that people have grown out of and showing this to the kids. So that is how we're doing presents. I also try not to do too many presents. And I do a lot of presents that are like group gifts. And every once in a while we do like, here's a gift for you specifically, to make like a special gift. But as of now with my young kids, they both play with everything. So it feels hard to be like, these are your gifts, especially because they share a room. So they have like, we are in constant share mode, and I'm sure I'll do an episode on sharing someday in the future. But this, all the presents, we keep it minimal, we reuse, and we share all the presents. How fun. But growing up, I didn't really even get into gift giving until I was like in high school, mostly because I had other friends who would gift give. And so then I kind of felt obligated to. And then I was like, I guess I should also be getting stuff for my parents. That's not like a massage coupon book that they never redeemed. So I've started this tradition with my kids, and I don't really know if I got the idea anywhere other than I just wanted them to get used to giving gifts too. And so we started it last year, and what we did was I went with one kid and my partner went with one kid, and we went to Target, which, who knows how this will change in the future. But we went to Target and we had a certain amount of money to spend on all of our stockings. And so the two kids picked stockings out for each other, and then me and my partner did each other's stockings. And so it was a fun experience to walk around with my 4-year-old and be like, okay, what do you think your sibling wants for Christmas? Like, what are little gifts that we want to give him and put in his stockings? And we still did stuff like toothbrush and toothpaste, because who doesn't love getting that in their stockings? And then we like chose their favorite candy, and we went and got a stuffed animal that was like their favorite character. So it was things like that we got to help them with the act of gift giving. Because personally, I'm still not very good at it, and I would rather someone just send me a link to something they want so I could just get them that. But that's not always really meaningful. And I do have to say, it's been so much nicer when someone has like thought about me because they saw something and then they get that for me. Which, I don't know, maybe we all feel that way. Maybe we don't, who knows? So now I want to go over 3 tips on how to keep raising inclusive kids this holiday season. And first, I'm going to go back to our sponsor, Miguel the Chameleon, because I actually have a part in that book that talks about how a lot of the holidays that are celebrated this time of year are because of religious beliefs. And I think if we're truly being inclusive, we are learning about all the different beliefs out there and, trying to understand them, having conversations about them, understanding that we are all going to believe something different and we can still like cohabitate. So that I think is really important. I feel like religion gets this like poor view on it these days. And even though I myself don't even identify as religious, I have a lot of religious friends, and I feel like how how sticky of an area it is to talk about religion just like doesn't really make sense to me. Because, well, that's not true. It does make sense to me. I feel like religion is, there's just like a huge scale of like different kinds of religious people. Because I know that we live pretty close to a church that is very like pro LGBTQ and pro diversity. Like they are very accommodating for people with disabilities, and they are very like community driven. But then I've seen other churches who say like don't go to the Pride Festival because that's a sin. So there's a huge range of religious people and religious practices. And again, to be inclusive, we have to want to learn about why people are practicing the things that they're practicing. And having those conversations, because that's really how people educate themselves on, diversity. So, okay, the three things. I went off on a tangent, which is not uncommon. The first one, I want to talk about preparing your kids for the holidays. So I do this pretty much all day, every day. When we are going to somewhere, when we're transitioning to something new, I talk about the expectations for my children. And I talk about ways out, that if they need a break, how can we get out of the situation? And so it will be anything to like a holiday party to opening presents with our cousins. And we will talk about how, everyone gets something different, and, how exciting it is when you get a new toy and you might not want to share it right away. And just kind of talk about those things. And of course, you're going to get to something where you did not prepare for a situation to happen. And whenever that happens for me, I remove me and my child immediately. And it's not seen as a timeout or any sort of disciplinary action. This is just so I can give them my full support without all the distractions of like other people trying to make comments, kids, screaming, laughing, whatever. And I do this quite frequently, that when I notice my child is getting like a lot of feelings, we will leave and go into another room. Maybe we'll go outside and go for a walk. And plus, this is a really great way for them to see what their precursors are, and then practices to support them throughout the situation. So preparing kids for the holidays is number one. And then also talking about like, there might be different food or what we're celebrating, like giving them the information. And this also really makes me think of presuming competence. A lot of people so quickly dismiss like, oh, well, they don't really get it, so I just don't explain it. Explain it to them like they do get it, because, worst comes to worst, you've now made clear expectations for everyone in the car and even for yourself. You just said them out loud to yourself. Best case scenario, they are understanding what you're saying, and that is going to make a difference once you are in the situation or the activity. Second, as I was saying before, learn about different holidays. I am going to be posting books all month about Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa, Diwali. There are so many winter holidays that are celebrated this time of year, and even like the winter solstice. These are all these things happening, and I've talked about this before, but I'm gonna talk about it again. It is not inclusive to not celebrate anything because one person doesn't celebrate anything. Everybody in the world has their own opinion. And so we should all be willing to learn about all the different ways we celebrate. So, for example, at a school, there might be a lot of different things to learn about. Like if you know that in your community you have people who celebrate Christmas, people who celebrate Hanukkah, and people who don't celebrate any holidays, you can talk about all three of those in an educational way, without like putting pressure on people that, like, you know, if one of us doesn't celebrate Christmas, then none of us will be talking about it, because that is not inclusive in my opinion. And then lastly, you can leave. If you are having a hard time, and this goes back to number one about preparing your kids, but if your kids are having a hard time and there is a sensory overload, you can leave the situation. You can bring them outside. If it's getting too hard, you know, maybe you go outside for like 20 minutes and you come back and it's still being really triggering in there, you can leave. The holidays are supposed to be a time to enjoy each other, celebrate time together. And if you are not feeling that and you are just feeling stressed and overwhelmed and angry, then we need to recalibrate how you're going to celebrate the holidays. And I mean, lastly, I have Make It Fun. Again, I know people get really stressed out with like the gift giving and the preparation and the lights, and like, you know, some years we just might not put the lights up. It might be too busy or stressful, and that's fine. Just see what you want to do, what you're capable of doing, and do that. And if anyone judges you, send them this podcast link. And if you got this link sent to you, stop being annoying. Let people live their lives. Damn. Okay. That is it for my inclusive holiday episode. Thank you everybody for being here and just taking the step to live more inclusive lives. There is so much that is out there for us to learn and grow together, and I'm so happy that you're doing it here with me. So happy holidays. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. Have a good day. Bye.